Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Dirty Gurdy Revival series. In the last episode, we finally got her up and running again after a really long time, all because the wrong ballast resistor was installed in the car. So in this episode, let's clean up more of that electrical mess. So the main things I want to tackle in this episode is I want to get all the lights up and running again. And I'm talking about the exterior and interior lights. So the first set of lights I want to start with are the dash lights. And to get the dash lights working, I have to figure out how to get that center console cluster out. So today on Dirty Gurdy, what we're going to do is mess with this instrument cluster. Because I went on a little test drive last night and there's no illumination in it. Also noticing that the odometer's not moving. And I don't know why, so who knows what's wrong with that. I mean, it's not super important. Car over a certain amount of years, I think maybe 10 years or whatever. Here in Idaho, it doesn't matter. You know, they call it exempt on the title. It doesn't matter. You know, who knows. So anyways, I know that the generator light that's illuminating is actually the oil pressure light. The actual generator light is rolled up behind here. Maybe I'll look at that, see what's going on with that. I don't believe these two gauges work either. I'm just going to see what's going on with that. So mainly you want it so I can illuminate the dash at night like you're supposed to when you pull on the headlight switch. So that's the order of operations today. So I'm going to pull this out. Just a few screws. This should just pull forward and check all the wiring, see what's going on. Now, a good resource for that, of course, is the factory service manual or the shop manual. But that just shows a wiring diagram, which is great. Another great resource is the factory assembly manual, which I have a printed out version for my 57, but I haven't bought one yet for my 56. So you can actually go to TriFive.com, a website I'm on all the time, and you can pull up the digital copy of the factory assembly manual. And look, it's got a nice little picture of what each one is supposed to be, each little wire loom and where they go and what they're called. All for free, the way GM made it originally. So you don't need to go to some weird website somewhere. Just go to TriFive.com. So I'm going to use this as a resource, find all my wires and everything, get it all hooked back up the way it's supposed to be, and see why I don't have dash lights. Because right now, I only have dash lights when the car is being turned over, which is not the way it's supposed to be. So here we are. So I just want to look at this really quick. So section 12 of the manual, sheet 3, shows you actually how it's installed. So it looks like there's just a screw on the top, on each side, 2 screws on the bottom. I bet that whole cluster comes right out. So that looks like it's going to be pretty simple. And then right here, you know, instrument cluster driving, wiring for left drive, because that's here in America. So here's something funny that I just learned. So I have this had the cover on here. You know, this cover's on here like that. I'm all trying to look behind it with my mirror and everything, trying to figure out how this thing's screwed on here. I'm like, I don't understand. So I'm like, well, let me just pull on it. Pulls right off. It's just held on with a couple clips. So that's how you get to the 2 screws that are here and here to get this thing out. So now it should just come out, I would imagine. I don't think there's much holding this thing in. Yeah. Okay, so this is out, just pulled straight forward. I just needed to wiggle it back and forth. There's plenty of slack on these wires. One thing I know for sure is these gray ones, these are the illumination circuit. So I got to trace these and figure out why none of them are illuminating. Or maybe the problem is that the light bulbs might all be burned out. I don't know. That looks like that might be good. There's paint on it though, which is not a good sign. You know, someone's definitely been in here and labeled all this stuff with the colors and everything. So yeah, next is a whole bunch of tracing of wires and figuring out what's going on. But it looks like it's still all original in here, hasn't been hacked into. Now I can finally look down in here and see what's going on with all these wires and stuff. Get a better idea of what is right and what is wrong on this poor old car. Alright, so I'm just going to pull the headlight switch because right here is where the gray wires are connected to, and they're supposed to be working, and I'm not getting 12 volts on it. So to get this out, it's pretty simple. There's a little button on the top of it. You depress it, wiggle it around a whole bunch, screw it back and forth, and eventually it comes out like that. And then you just twist this bezel off, I'm assuming, and then the switch will come out from the back. So because I just might as well tear the whole thing apart just to check it and make sure, because that's really the only way to know for sure. So I went ahead and just pulled the whole switch out, and yeah, just had a little screw in the front, took that off, used needle nose pliers to get that off, and then the switch came out from behind the dash. If you have a nice car, you probably don't want to mess up that bezel. I'm sure there's a special tool to get that off, but I just use needle nose pliers. So there's two resources that I can use. Well, actually three. One is my brain, because it's going to be a pretty simple switch. And the other is, there's a nice little picture here in the shop manual on page 12.4. And also, good old trusty assembly manual shows the pictures and the pinouts of exactly the color and where the wires are supposed to go on as well. So I'm just going to ohm this out, see what's going on with it. And one nice little thing about the 56 too that I didn't even know was a thing is there's a little fuse on it. I'm guessing these things here, well, I have a good idea of what they are, these little contact things, but I'm going to read in here because I'm sure it says what they are. I'm sure they're a bimetallic switch. Oh, look at this little guy. There's a nice little pin here too. I'm sure they're a bimetallic switch to open up a contact in case it gets too hot. Well, I could tell you what not to do. Don't take the screws out of the top. Also, all I was trying to do was the little pin right here, this thingy that makes the dome light turn on and off manually when you twist it all the way. It goes around a little wheel that is now here, and it twists and it gets on this little hump right here in the front, and it makes contact with the top of this plate by twisting it, and this thing pushes up. So it was bent and not working right. So I'm like, well, I'll just take the top off of that and rebend it, and it's fine. It's all wore out. It broke in half. The very first thing I tried to do was bend it back a little bit. It's really soft metal. And then, of course, when I was taking it apart, some spring flew out and went over there and went underneath the bench, and who knows where the heck that is. So, yeah. So I just broke this switch. Yeah. I'm kind of frustrated right now. So, yeah. So, FYI, the problem was the damn fuse on the back of this thing. But, yeah, it's right there is the fuse. That's why it wasn't completing the circuit here to turn the dash lights on. But also the rheostat, the rheostat was probably working, but I couldn't turn the dome lights on because this thing wasn't working right. So that's what was bugging me anyways, that's why I took the whole thing apart, because this was all squished and not making contact the way it was supposed to be on that drum. So no matter what, the switch was broken. So I'm going to just go manually jump those wires in the car and see if I can get the dash lights to work. I ordered a new switch. It's like $36, made in the USA, and got it off of eBay. Well, I tested all the little lights, the gray lights. They all work. There's a gray connection on the headlight switch that makes them turn on and off. The reason why I wasn't getting power at them before is because I'm a dummy and forgot to realize that when you disconnect the cluster, you lose ground to the whole thing. So that's why the silly lights, when I was trying to test them and force power on that gray wire and test them here, they weren't working at all. I'm like, oh, why aren't they working? Well, once I grounded it, duh, it worked just fine. So the wires are good. So when I get the headlight switch replaced with the fuse, because the fuse was the problem in the first place, the instrument cluster lights will turn on again. What I'm doing right now is I am playing with the dome lights. So tracing the white wire and the switch are good here on the driver's side. The switch over here
on the passenger side is good. So I tested it. It works. There's a little switch, got the ohm value of, pretty much 0 resistance, and it was just fine. So now I'm just connecting that wire that I found earlier. I'm just going to connect it, run it over there. There's these little clips underneath the dash at the top. I'll run it along there like it's supposed to, and then run it down over here. I've already tested these wires coming out of the ceiling. That white wire, wherever it gets ground, it completes the circuit, turns on. This orange wire always has power to it, and that's how it completes the circuit. So, and there's no ones on the back. There's no switches on the back because it's a 210. I think the Bel Airs are the only ones, because that's how my 57 is. Only has the switches in the back. So of course there's no there's no light switches in the back. This orange wire is hooked directly to, wait for it, no, not a fuse. It's hooked to the headlight switch, to that weird bimetal thing that they call a circuit breaker. So it's actually connected to the headlight switch, and that's where it's fused. And it's also, this orange wire is the same exact wire as the brake lights. So yeah, I'm not going to hook it back up like that. I'm actually going to hook it back up. So the orange wires are hanging out over there, and there you can see the fuse panel. And there's a place on that fuse panel for brake. I'm just going to hook to that. So I'm going to hook the orange wire to one of these fuses, and then the thing will be fused, because I don't want to use that crazy circuit breaker, because if you actually have a short, it's just going to go on, off, on, off, on, off. So forget that. I'm just going to hook it up to a normal fuse, and I would suggest that you do the same thing as well. And then I think I'll be done for a little bit on this till I get some more parts in. Alright, so now let's test the passenger side, see if it works. Got it connected to the white wire. Have this on ohms. Got it grounded. So this is grounded, check into that. So here's the switch all installed, it's wired. Got my little wire up inside of here. There you go, you can see it right there. Running across and going on those little hookies on the inside. So if I simulate shutting the door by pressing this button, the circuit opens, which means the light turns off. Open the door. Oh, look, that means the light turns on. So this is going to work. So now I just got to get a little temporary dome light put up there, and I'll have dome lights. Yes. So this car is just an electrical nightmare. Not necessarily because of the way it's designed, but because I don't know what's going on with it over all these years. So what I've done is taken the orange wire, which once again, the orange wire is dome light power and brake light power, and it's always on. Because, you want to have your dome lights working all the time, and, you want your brake lights to work no matter what condition your car is in. So I've got power all the time coming in here, because of the way the car is wired. It comes off the ignition switch and then comes to over here. So I've got power coming in on this red wire right here. So power is always coming in right here. And what I did is there's already fuse here, nothing was connected to it, so I've connected it to the other side of this fuse, so now it's fused. So I'll probably put a little piece of tape on here just so there won't be any bare wire at all. So I'll just wrap a little bit of masking tape around that, and then we'll call that good.
Good news, progress is being made. The headlight switch came in today. Let's go ahead and install that bad boy.
All right, got my new switch in for the headlight, and you can see, it's supposed to be USA remanufactured. Well, not remanufactured, a brand new switch, and it looks pretty good. Of course, little sad differences, like this is the original Delco switch. This is not. I actually might think I'm going to hang on to this, because it looks like I can get the part I need off of this and put it on here if I wanted to, and reuse this stock switch. Because there's really nothing wrong with it. It's still perfectly good. It doesn't barely even look that worn. So the part that was broken was right here. It's got the little drum. It spins around, and what it does is it mechanically pushes this tab down and against this piece of metal, which makes a contact, and it goes around and it comes to here, and that completes the ground circuit for the dome light to turn on and off. So it's just basically got a little drum inside of here, and it comes around, and when it's on top of it like that, it's making contact at the top. So it's very simple. So that was the part that was bent and all crushed, and I tried to fix it on here, and I bent it, and it instantly broke the very first time. So I got to put the switch back together, put it in the car. I got the little wiring diagram here. That's from the TriFive website. That tells me exactly where the lights go by colors, because I got it all hooked back up except for the stoplight one, because that one now I have on a real fuse, so that's the only one that I'm not going to hook back up. So that is coming up back. Well, so of course with the car there's good news and bad news. Got the switch installed, and well, not all installed, I mean I have it wired, and I was going to install it, but when I started hooking up the power wire on the bottom, the last wire here, the original red wire, not the wire that's in front of it. When I was hooking up this red wire, it sparked. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Why is it sparking? Which means there's power going to somewhere. So I just assumed it was because the switch wasn't all the way to press, so I put the plunger in it. And yeah, it's fine now. But I figured, well, I might as well test it. Put it in parking lights. You walk around to the back of the vehicle and double check. You're like, hey, yeah, I got taillights. Go to the front of the vehicle, because you're supposed to have the running lights on in the front. And I'm like, oh, yay, they work too. And then I notice, oh no, the headlights are on. Well, that's not good. I'm like, oh no. So I pull the plunger all the way out, which should just be headlights in the front, because this car, the running lights in the front should shut off, so they're off like they're supposed to, and the headlight's still on. So got to figure out what in the world is causing that, because that is not good. Oh, I also found another wire, because I was inside the car, noticed there's a blue wire, one of the last wires that are jimmy rigged coming through the firewall here. I'm like, yeah, I just noticed it when I was doing the headlight switch. I'm like, I wonder where that blue wire goes. So here's the headlights and the tail lights coming in right here, and oh no, here's that blue wire. And that blue wire goes all the way through the firewall, through the car, through into here, around into here, and the blue wire comes through here, and then it's spliced into these tail light wires. So that's some kind of weird bypass that someone put in. So I got to figure out what's going on with that and hook that back up correctly as well, because the wiring's not difficult in this car, but when you start hacking into stuff, it's when you have problems. I mean, I learned that on my 57, because I had the reverse lights bypassed forever, and the tail lights I had bypassed forever, because it was something wrong with the switch, because they weren't switching properly. So I just bought a new switch in the column, and it was fine. So I doubt that's what this problem is, but there's a short somewhere between the headlight and the parking lights in front. So let's look at the wiring diagram and see where that's at. Well, it looks like I solved the problem, because I couldn't figure out where the wiring's hacked into except for right here. So I just unhooked it, because this is that blue wire that runs all the way to the tail lights for some reason, and used the switch like how you're supposed to. I put it in running lights or parking lights, and I would expect the front ones to just be on, which they are. Headlamp off, which is the way it's supposed to be, and I was expecting the tail lights to be off, but they're not. They're on. So I don't know what that jumper wire is even for. So I'm just going to leave it disconnected, because I don't know if that was an attempt to bypass so the headlights and running lights are on at the same time, or what. But it's working perfectly fine without it. So I'm just going to pull that wire back in through the dash and leave it coiled up and check it out for later apparently, but yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to mount the headlight switch in the dash the way it's supposed to be and move on to the next project. Well, I'm stupid. It just totally occurred to me that I can put a flathead screwdriver in there and that would work just fine instead of trying to grab the outside with needle nose pliers like a dummy. So now this is installed. Well, after much finagling, I finally got it in. Pretty much it goes only in one direction, and that just took me forever to figure it out. So now it's going. So there we go. Headlights on. And headlights are on. Oh yeah.
All right, one problem solved. Yay! Let's move on now to the dome light.
Okay, I just got back from O'Reilly's and picked up this little doodad, this bulb socket to put for the temporary dome light. They had 1156 bulbs sockets, but the 1156s are made to be grounded, and that's just 2 wires hanging out of the ceiling. So it didn't have an easy spot for me to ground it, so I didn't want to mess around with it for only $1 more. I just got this one that takes a 194 bulb. So I'm gonna go ahead and splice this into the dome light and see if it works. Alright, dome light's on. Shut the door for dramatic effect. And look, it shuts off. Let's try the other door. Okay, open. And, oh look, light is on. So that works pretty good. Awesome. Cost me $4. Bam.
So remember back in episode 1, I said to keep an eye on that gas filter, the fuel filter, because it's really dirty? Well, it's only even dirtier now. It's the little cartridge thing. I went ahead and changed the inside cartridge again, and...
So I changed the little Mr. Gasket filter in there, and the car ran for a tiny bit, and then as I was warming up, it died again. So I'm pretty sure the gas is bad and needs to be changed, so I'm going to look into doing that, flush out the fuel line, clean the tank, possibly. I'll drain the fuel, put some gas in it, see if it comes out clean. If not, I'll have to drop the tank and clean it out. And yeah, I found some bad news, some more bad news on the car as I was jacking it up, because I'm going to try to mess with the wheel cylinders today, because this one was locking up. So I'm just going to take it apart, look at it, rebuild the wheel cylinder just for the heck of it, just to see. It's like $4, so I bought a new wheel cylinder. But I knew I had this rust damage over here when I first looked at the car, and I thought that was a strange spot for rust damage. I'm like, oh well, that'll be something I mess with later. But as I was down here jacking up the car, this is gone. This is gone. It's soft. So that's worse than I was expecting. So who knows how far down all that goes. That's gonna be quite the chore to replace that. Oh well. I wasn't expecting a brand new car for the price that I got this thing for. So anyways, tear this off, probably drain the gas, and go from there.
Well, the problem with the fuel is only going to get worse, and you're going to see the results of that in the next episode. But at the time, I didn't realize how bad it really was, so I just went ahead and pressed on and started working on the brakes.
Alright, so I got the drum off really easy, and this actually looks like it's in good shape. The pads look decent, and the drums are pretty much smooth. I sprayed it out of here with some brake cleaner, and I don't know, it actually looks to be in better shape than I was expecting. I wonder if it was just sticking because it's old? I don't know. I'm still going to rebuild that wheel cylinder. I mean, even though it looks pretty new. But yeah, better shape than I expected. Well, I pulled the wheel cylinder off. I had to pull it off because the boots are stuck in some kind of a clip thing on the back. And I guess I'm glad I did, because it's a little more pitted in there and rusted out than I thought. So yeah, I guess every time it expands, it would have a good chance of getting stuck. So I'm going to knock these guys out and hone it and throw in the new kit. Well, this just goes to show you that looks can be deceiving. You know, even though the rubber looked good on the outside, I didn't see anything leaking. This thing is all rusted out on the inside. So yeah, I bet after a good honing, it'll probably be just fine. I believe it's even the original one, because it's got Delco on the back of it, so that's pretty cool. So that'll probably explain why. But yeah, I bet just hone this, and we won't have any issues at all. I do have a couple original wheel cylinder kits, new old stock. I don't know if I want to put it in this car or not, so I'll just put in those aftermarket ones that I got at O'Reilly and test it out and see how it does. So out here in the sun you can see really how bad it is, and this is after cleaning it and honing it a little bit on this side. And this side is the side that I've been working on. I've been honing it and there's still rust in there, so I just finally gave up. I'm using a Scotch-Brite pad now just to get the rust out, and then I'll hone it after I get all the rust out. That probably seems like a better plan, because it is dirty. So it's better in there. So I don't know what the dimensions are, what the tolerances are for how far you can hone this thing out, but I'm just using a Scotch-Brite pad. So unless there's like really big holes in here that are left over from the rust, it should be okay to put back together with the kit. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with this. I did my Scotch-Brite sanding and then honed it, and it seemed to work best when I moved the hone really fast in and out instead of going slow. That looks pretty good. I mean, there's some minor stuff on the outsides here, but it never gets out there in the first place. The plungers don't come out that far, the little rubber guys. So, you know, there's really not that much movement, maybe from like here to here. You know, that's about it. And those areas look way better. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. Well, here she is all rebuilt. Notice it's sticking out a lot. I went ahead and used the spring that came with the kit. Normally I wouldn't do that. The original spring is still in good shape. Normally I would replace that spring with the kit, leave it in the kit. But I don't know, maybe it'll work better having a string that's a lot stronger. So that might help it from getting stuck again. So what the heck, let's try it out. But it's all nice and clean on the inside now. Even used a little bit of the Scotch-Brite pad on the outside to clean it up a little bit. Now I'm going to put it back in the vehicle.
I went ahead and put the wheel cylinder back on. I didn't bleed the brakes yet because I still have a lot more work to do on all the wheel cylinders. But I will get to that in an upcoming episode. But for now, the lights work. Yay! And speaking of coming up, in the next episode, I'm going to start looking into the fuel system. I'm going to drop the tank for a couple reasons. I want to see what the heck is going on in there and where all this crud is coming from. And I want to replace the sending unit on it. Maybe that's what's wrong with the fuel gauge not working, because it could be the sending unit, it could be the wiring, or it could be the gauge itself. Or a combination of all three. So if you want to see this or any other of my GM content, make sure you smash that subscribe button. If you have any questions or concerns or comments, just go ahead and leave those in the comments section below. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on the Dirty Gurdy adventures so far. Have a fantastic day.